spur of the moment things. Pat,
No, well, don't believe anything.
Well, yeah. Imagine
Yeah,
that.
right.
Believe something
Yeah,
that
imagine
They were all
that.
having fun jabbing him.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's-
jabbing.
Call to meeting the Planning and Zoning Commission for Monday, October 14th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Tony Gilgenbach.
Here.
Mark Hydrich.
Here.
Mark Kleesner. Mark Piontek.
Here.
Tom Holtmeyer.
Here.
Sandy Lucy.
Here.
John Borgman.
here?
Chuck Watson. Samantha Wacker.
Here.
Carolyn Witt.
Here.
Sal Maniaci.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 9th, 2019 meeting. If you've had a chance to review those, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second?
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to number 3, case number 19-1001, Richard and Phyllis Steckel. The applicant is requesting to rezone the 2-acre tract across from Schulte Bakery, 1101 West Fifth Street. Sal?
Yes, thank you. So this is a request to rezone a property located on West Fifth Street. It is currently unaddressed. I think 1101 may be the address. We have to wait till we get building permits to get the address, but it is this approximate 2-acre site just across the street from Schulte's Bakery. You can see here it is zoned R1B single-family residential, and the applicant is requesting to rezone it to R3 multifamily residential. Now, in reviewing this, staff's recommendation you can see in our staff report, given that its location on Fifth Street, and the fact that there is a variety of uses up and down West Fifth Street, all the way from multifamily, single-family to commercial, we do see that it's not an inappropriate request for this location. I could see some concern with the size of it and the intensity of development that could go on there. And so that's where we started looking at, with that would change our recommendation based on the size of it. This is from staff's recommendation that our current code section, our city code and development code, would provide the appropriate protections to neighboring property owners if they were to develop it to its full capacity. I'm kind of going to get ahead of myself here before I finish showing what they submitted, because we make a recommendation just based on strictly on the zone district, what they're requesting. Because of the fact that our code requires 2 parking spaces per unit, on-site stormwater detention in this case, landscaping and buffering, given the shape and location topography of this subject property, we think it's not realistic for a development to get to a size that would be inappropriate for the area. We think we have the appropriate codes in place to protect the surrounding property owners. So that's the main meat and potatoes of our recommendation of approval for this request. I will say the applicant did submit some renderings. We do not require this to do this up front. This is an unplanned district, but they, and speaking with them, because I knew this was going to be an issue for it, depending on intensity, that it could be difficult to fit into the area. So they had already had plans drawn up to show, and they put in their application a triplex, where it'll be owner occupied on the main floor with 2 units on the top. So they did submit these. And you can see here, this is the rear view showing the units with decks on the back. But it does, in its architectural style, appear as a single-family home that we think will, in addition, help it fit into the area. So with that being said, given the applicant's description in their application and their submittals and the fact that we have an existing code book that we think protects the surrounding properties, we are recommending approval of the rezoning to go to R3 multifamily residential.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I always have
Yeah.
questions. So, okay, the way it would set on the lot, and seeing these drawings, because the ones in our packet were a little fuzzy, we really couldn't make out the back very well. If you could go back to that one. So the back, the entrances for the garages would be in the rear. So did they indicate where the drive would come for that, if it would be one common drive or if there would be 2 drives
There would be one drive on the left that wraps around to the rear of the building, is what was told to me. And the applicant is here to
Okay.
explain that. But yeah, as I understood it, it would actually, the building would be not completely centered, kind of to the right here, in line with the setback, and then it would have a driveway around to the left to get to the rear. And as you can see by the elevation, it'll be built into the hillside that slopes down significantly to the north. And so that's how you see it's 2-story in the front off Fifth Street, 3-story in the back. It'll be built into the hillside.
Would it be sprinklered?
Oh, that is a good question for the applicant. I'm not sure on square footage wise.
That's what I was wondering, what the square footage was.
Yeah. Couldn't tell you. That wouldn't affect our zoning recommendation.
Right.
But yeah, it could be. And once you get to a certain size and units, I know the building code requires it. So
Well, and the other concern that I have is addressing, because you don't see any of the other 2 units from the front at all. So all you see is the street address for the first floor unit.
Yep.
And there has to be some depiction of how to get to the rear.
yeah, they would have to show some. If it is 1101, there would have to be a placard that would say Unit A or B. Or 1101, however they decide
You
to do
guys
it.
would work that out through staff.
Yeah,
then.
where it's at. And that is something, that's why it says 1101 in there. That's in between the 2 houses on each side of it. But we determine the address after we get building permits in.
Okay.
We did see, it's on Fifth Street, so it wasn't a surprise, but because of, it was a little bit higher intensity use, we verified that, water capacity was there, and there was no concern there. So there's no infrastructure improvements that would be required as a result of this.
So there really wouldn't be any street parking for the rear units per se, other than Fifth Street, correct?
Correct. With the driveway and the garages, as I understand, the owner occupied will have these garages on the front, and then each unit will get their own garage in the rear with an elevator actually that goes up to their second floor units.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Will there eventually be more buildings, or is this?
Not that's been submitted, but it could be. So that's why I made
Yeah.
I kind of wrote the recommendation the way I did. Is this rendering is not required to be submitted. This does not mean what they're holding to. The way it is off-centered, they could fit probably one more on there, just with setbacks and stormwater and everything. If they would build this one to the east a little bit, they could probably do an identical one to the right. And that's where we're saying in my recommendation, given our code requirements that they'd have to provide parking, they'd have to provide buffering and screening from those side property lines, they could get one more building in there, probably another triplex that looks like that. But unless they go into the rear and completely show a revised site plan with some significant grading, parking, stormwater, I don't imagine them too many units being placed here.
So how do you determine the setback with the houses to the right so far back further than the houses on the left of the lot?
So, and whenever, I'd have to check, I think whenever there's nothing within 100 feet, you can use, if it's not on both sides, you can use the one that's closest to it.
Okay.
On the same block. And there is a distance on there that if it is not within so many X amount of feet, they just have to go back to the regular setback, which is 25 feet. So at a minimum, it would be 25, which is actually, it's pretty close on the eastern side. These houses on the west are a little bit closer.
Right.
In this case, I would imagine because of the depth of the lot, they could average the two, and we'd take the difference between this distance and that distance, and they would have to split the difference.
If they did a second building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. With the topography there and how they show this building with the 3 stories in the back, I would imagine it's set back further than 25 feet because it is fairly flat on top and then it starts to go down. So if they're going to be building to the hillside without doing significant cuts, I would think it's pushed back a little bit, and I'm sure they can attest to that. But that was one thing looking at it, and especially after I got the rendering, there's not a concern with setbacks. They definitely, one, they have the land, but two, I think it'll be set back quite a ways. So.
One more question.
Yep.
Do you know how many of those other houses along Fifth Street to the east are two-family?
I don't, because they're all zoned single family, but you're right, they could be. There's some that definitely could
I
be.
had none. None.
But once you get to High Street, That's when we get into the zoning that automatically allows up to two-family without request. But in this case, since it was zoned R1B, I didn't check any of
So
our.
as far as we know, there are no two-family along there.
Right, in this block between High and Lewis.
Okay.
There used to be at least one or two families close by, but I don't know if those have changed to single or not.
Yeah. I believe there's some, these are all duplexes here. Yeah, in this block side,
I'm just talking about there were some older homes that were being used as two.
there could be, they
over
just
the
be
years,
grandfathered
but
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Any other questions, comments by board members? If not, would the applicants like to come up and address the board? I think we do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Sure. Right? Thanks. Introduce yourself and your address.
I'm Richard Steckel. This is my spouse, Phyllis Steckel. And we currently reside just outside of Washington. We're planning to do this triplex on Fifth Street.
We're downsizing. We live in Meadow Lake Farm right now, 2138 Meadow Oaks Lane.
So you plan on living at
Yes.
this
We'll
location?
be the owner
And
occupying it.
the middle level is, and the two upper units are this couple and this couple.
Okay.
So it's already.
Wow.
The youngest one of us is 62.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Any other
Okay.
questions, comments?
Why you were here?
Addressing the setback, we're planning at least a 50-foot setback.
50 feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you
So-
planning, go ahead,
No,
John. I'm
no,
sorry.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, are you planning more than one building eventually on the lot, or is it just the one
We'll
building?
see how this one works. If
Yeah.
we did, it would be, like Sal said, it'd be similar, and that would be it. It might be a 4-unit one where,
We'll see
There's-
how this goes.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so are,
the same style, same size, about 50 by,
Same
50
concept.
feet deep, about 60 feet wide, and that would be the end of it.
okay, so it would also be like, they'd be kind of side by side, or would
Yes,
one be
side by
behind
side.
with a long?
Side by side.
Okay, okay, that's what we were worried about. Were you planning to, you do your grading and all of that, or, so there's
No.
nothing really planned to the back, possibly another one in the front?
Nothing more in the
And
back.
that will be after we're completed and moved
Okay.
in, and then we sit down and say, do we really want to do this?
Okay,
And we may not.
okay.
So you mentioned a 50-foot setback?
Pardon me?
You mentioned a 50-foot setback?
Yes.
So how would that fit in with the other properties then, Sal? Because those are both closer than 50 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
correct. Well, I think it's a minimum 50 foot.
And there's no maximums?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so. Yeah, if you don't mind, Gina, that'd be quicker than. I know like on C2 overlay, in some parts of Fifth Street, there's an overlay district where we require you to build closer to the street. And to try and get that walkability, but this far west and not out of the overlay district, I don't believe there's a maximum.
Okay.
I'll check how that front yard setback is read, but
And that may vary a few feet depending on the grade and where we put the house, so we'll position it. We did a rough positioning about a month ago, and it looked like that was going to be about 50 feet, where the grade would work out with the minimum amount of excavation that way.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak on this? Please introduce yourself and your address.
I'm Jeff Ahode. I live at 1112 Parkside Drive. I remember when that place was sold the first time, Snooks or Schulte sold it on the option that you can only build a house on it. And then it got resold again, and now you can do whatever they want to it. It's kind of a hairline thing there. So are you planning on setting your house this way?
If you would, address the board.
Are you planning on going long ways? Or?
I'm sorry, you have to talk to us. Well, if you have questions, we'll get the
Sorry,
answers.
are they
and
planning on going
Yeah.
this way or this way with it? Are they going north and south, east or west?
it'll be, the facade will be facing Fifth Street, just like the other homes.
Okay, so you need, is the new rule for the new road, is that 35 feet now? for a street? What's the street width, 25?
Depends on what type of street it is.
But it depends how many houses are going in, or apartments, correct?
And they're not, yeah, as proposed, they're not,
But if you change it R2, then they can add later, correct? So you got to make it right before, you can't say, well, it depends what they do later, because you got to put the street in to begin with, correct?
yeah, there's not a street proposed. If there were to be a new street proposed to build in there, we would require that at
But
that time.
they're saying that they're planning on putting 2 or 3 back there.
No,
No,
that's
no,
not what they
just one.
said.
Just one next to it.
They said maybe one next door.
Well, you said one next door, then, so you're never going to build nothing else behind it.
The way it sounds now, there's going to be 2 facing Fifth Street, possibly.
So that's 2,
Right now, there's 1.
okay?
Then they may build what they said later, the other one next to it. So it'd be even
It'll be
in
a
front.
building facing here with a drive on Fifth Street and a building here facing Fifth Street with a driveway. So there'd be no proposed road. And if there ever were a road proposed to go back there, they would have to go back to this board because it would actually be platting out a road.
And that would be tough to do at that elevation.
Exactly.
Have to be,
Yeah.
it would have to be 28 feet, I think is.
It would, well, at minimum, it'd have to be 30, and then you'd have to get a cul-de-sac that's 100-foot wide.
don't see it
It's
happening.
really not,
We don't like to go
Realistic.
over 10% grade, but actually 12.
Well, yeah, it's up
Yeah.
way too up.
Yeah, so,
There's no road proposed.
Okay, so not to make anybody, but right now they're all older people living there, right? That
That's
they're
what
that's
they just
their
told
plan,
you.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what they just said.
but they all die. So when they die, who's
Well-
gonna, but what I'm saying, right, well, I'm just saying what happens when they die, then somebody buys it, are they going to turn it into just rental property? Then that just ruins all the value of all the houses around there.
But that could
My point.
happen with any house around there. That could happen with any of those.
Yeah, but you're not talking 3 and 4-plex. I mean, they're building out south and north, there are a whole bunch of condos. I'm just saying my
Yeah.
point.
And the way I think we look at it as a board is that it's residential, and it's not a large complex. You know, it's not like the one out on the highway.
So you get 12,
even
6.
rental property, for the most part, is not any worse than residential, single-family.
I would doubt that because I got 14 units and I know what people are like. So
Well-
that's just my personal opinion.
Well,
You know, I
what
work
we-
with them all the time. Now, I mean, I understand the thing, but I'm just saying, and I know probably everyone's thinking the same thing. We're all residential around there, and now we got so many of them.
Well, and sir,
yeah.
what Sal was saying before is that the code is set up in such a way that if they wanted to do some kind of massive rental development, the property probably wouldn't be adaptable to that because of the amount of parking, the stormwater detention, all of the things that are built into the code that are required. It would really be cost prohibitive and also not effective for that particular property. So the concern probably, I understand what you're saying, but that's not what's being presented to us, and
Yeah.
probably not what's being proposed just because of the lack of suitability of the property to meet the code requirement.
Yeah, but I can see it in, after they pass away, turning into rental property if other people don't want to buy it. I mean, I see that, because it'd be 6 units there, prime property for rental properties, I'm sorry, you know.
You might be gone then too.
I probably will be, because I probably move somewhere else. But I'm just, you know, I'm not just saying for myself, I'm just saying, well, I just say what I feel all the time, so I don't care about. But no, that's, I mean, if you look about it, it's all residential, all houses, you know.
And that's what, I mean, it's being proposed residential. And on Fifth Street, right across from it's commercial. You know, up and down the street at spots, it's commercial,
Right.
close. So it's not that far out of line with what they're proposing.
Until they change it. But, I mean, I'm just saying my point, so,
Okay,
Thank you so much for sharing.
thank you.
thank
Yep,
you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Hi.
Hi, my name is Kathy Bowen.
If you could
pull the
pull
mic down.
Oh, okay. How's that?
That's good.
Okay. I live at 1030 West Fifth Street.
Can we point out where, is it visible on the map?
Yes, it should be Klingslick Lane. It should be right on the corner.
Okay, so you're across the street from the
Yes, I am.
property? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
yes, that's me. And that's a big lot. Is that a street that's behind it?
No.
It's a tree line, I believe.
That's a tree line. There is no street that comes through
That's
it.
just, that's showing the property
Okay.
lines, essentially. It's not showing a street.
There's no street.
too,
It backs
am
up to
worried. I
houses.
am worried about the same thing that the man in front of me said. You're talking about one unit? Okay, that's a big lot. What's to prevent, once we rezone it multifamily, that in 10 years, 5 years, which I probably won't be here, but that's okay. What's to prevent them from building behind?
The elevation, and they would need more access to that lot and the back of the lot. So they would have to almost put a street in, right, Sal, to put additional units back there. So
But you're already saying they're going to put two
No.
two in front.
up in
They're
front.
saying maybe two is what they said. They're doing one, and they are maybe doing two, maybe not doing two, is what the applicant is telling
Hey,
us.
but maybe
I
in
understand.
time, they will put a street back there. It could happen.
It's not big enough. That's what we're saying. It's not big
That
enough.
lot is
to
not
put a
big enough. I'm thinking about apartments on Fifth Street next to Williams Brothers. How big is that lot that those apartments are sitting on?
But that's
know
a
what I'm saying?
Right. That's a flat lot too. That's very flat what you're talking about. This lot is a very different grade. And so that's what one of the barriers would be. And then
Okay, now, if you put it closer
Right.
to the street, hey, yeah, then it is pretty flat. But it doesn't drop off till pretty far back. So there's a lot of room there, a lot of room. And that
big lot.
concerns me.
Then they would have to come back. If they're going to put a street in or
Right.
do something like that, they'd have to come back here.
Okay, so if they put in one, and then they put in two, and then they say, oh, look, we have room for a third one, do they have to come back?
Yes. There's no way they could do that.
If
though,
they wanted,
because-
if they needed to put a road into the back, then yeah, and they wanted to plat it out, then yes, but
What if they didn't put a road? What if they ran those driveways back further?
We won't allow that.
We don't allow that.
We need access to those homes.
That's my concern.
Yeah,
Okay.
the city codes won't
Been a
allow
pretty
that.
quiet town up until about 5 years ago. And now I see a lot that is, I mean, it's not the city's fault, absolutely. But this concerns me greatly. And I do not think that I would in any way go along with it. That's just my opinion. And I don't know how my neighbors feel,
Okay,
but I do.
yep, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Anyone else? Come on up.
My name is Robert Phil. I live directly behind. I live at 1108 Horn Street. I'm concerned about storm runoff. Got any idea how to handle that?
yeah, so they will be required to, when they get building permits, to verify to our engineering department that they're not increasing any runoff onto neighboring property. We require that for all development, whether it's single family or multifamily. And so our engineering department reviews that whenever the building permit is submitted.
Okay, what kind of entrance are they going to have down to their units?
It would be off Fifth Street, a driveway off Fifth Street.
I'm sorry, sir?
It'll be a driveway off Fifth Street.
Like in the middle of their property?
I
Like,
mean, I think it'll be off-centered here a little bit, like a driveway
Okay.
in this area.
well, but the units they want to propose are both going to be facing Fifth Street,
Correct.
okay? And they're not going to build anything behind those units?
Not according to the applicant, no.
And they can't if they put that second unit in unless they build a street 30 feet wide in between them. And there's
Okay.
not enough room there for that, I do not believe.
All right. That's what I need to know. Thanks.
Okay.
Is that a 120-foot lot?
I was just going to ask what that dimension was, if we had that.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't
Does
have
the applicant
measurements on
know?
here. Let's see.
Looking at it next to the other lots, it looks like that.
Those-
I mean, there's a scale on here, so according to my pen, it's about 120.
218.
180, well,
218. Okay.
Get a
And
different
if,
get a different pen, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask another
Yes,
question of the
yes.
applicant?
Yep.
If you want to come up to the microphone, I have another question.
Applicant, come on up.
Please. What is the approximate width of the building you're proposing?
not quite 60 feet. I think it's going to be
60.
50 deep and 60 wide.
60, okay.
About,
About a normal house footprint.
we have, do you want to, this is the plat, and we just put a sticky
Oh,
on it.
okay.
And it's a ballpark.
Okay.
All right, thanks. I think that, anything else, John?
I think I'm doing some math, so I think-
Sal should have a copy of it. Can we give you a copy of that?
No, I only have the drawings that you gave me.
Do you want
But-
a copy of this?
If the commission wants it, I can
Look at?
enter it
Well,
in.
we
Yeah.
see it there.
That's okay.
Pardon me?
We see the drawing, and we'll figure out the footage here on the lot. Anyone else in the audience?
So there are no plans to put a street back there.
Yeah.
We need to say that.
Yeah. At this point, there's no plans for a street, and if you put 218, John's doing the math on
Yeah.
it, but you put two houses up there and you put a driveway in between, there's no room. You have setbacks on each side of the lot, you have setbacks in the front, there's not going to be room to put a street. Plus, they'd have to come back here, and I don't think this board at this time would allow that. I know they wouldn't.
Sal, what
So-
would the side yard setback be for that area?
6 feet.
6 feet, okay.
Anyone else? Come on up.
That's it. The apartments, because you.
If you could introduce
Oh,
yourself.
Jeff Ahold again, sorry.
That's right.
The apartments by the chiropractor where Regal used to own, that's straight down, and they have got, what, 9 or 10 apartments on that hillside?
Yeah, we learned our lesson.
Yeah, I will tell you that those would not be approved today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, well, that's what I see. I see that
Yeah.
stuff, and they keep going and going.
We do too.
So if you make it zone 2, or whatever, R2,
Or
they,
three, actually, isn't it?
R3, whatever it would be, they would have to put 2 buildings up front, is what they're proposing. No other,
One today and
but I mean, the
possibly a
maximum.
second one.
But they all would have to be to the front facing Fifth Street, is what,
Yep, for now. If they wanted something different, they'd probably have to come back if it doesn't meet the building codes.
Yeah. They'd have to
And then put a
show
street.
some building design that they could get fire access down there, get stormwater, get parking, and that's what we're saying.
won't
Given the
happen.
topography, given the narrowness of the lot, they would not be able to achieve all that probably without having some type of variance, or if they wanted to build an actual road to go back there, they'd have to get it platted and go back to this board regardless.
Yeah.
that's what I need, no, thanks.
And I think Mark has some information.
Yeah, there's no maximum front yard depth in the code. So they could theoretically set the house back as far as they wanted to, but my understanding with the topography, that's gonna be pretty hard to do.
Yeah, as a builder, it would make a great walkout, though. I mean, I could see that going back, but that wouldn't bother me as much as a whole bunch of them going.
Yeah.
Well, I think, according to this, I think it is going to be a walkout. That's why you can see that these garages in the
So you
rear.
still need a driveway to go between the houses to get behind it.
Correct.
And now, is
Not
there,
a street. It'll be a driveway. Just
so how big a driveway does it, I guess there ain't no code in the,
No,
no.
required to get back there?
Yeah.
We have it from the front.
That's right.
Come on up.
Hi, I'm Gail Vincent. I'm directly, well, not directly behind, but behind to the right. And
What's
so
your
you said
address?
that the no extra stormwater, we would get any extra. What happens if we do? Who's going to be responsible for that?
So if you realize
like-
that there's,
So like right now, I'm in the middle of the valley,
okay,
so I get it all.
yeah. So if there is an increase in runoff, so say especially if it's very easy to be proved during construction, there's mud coming and it's all rinsing off, they don't have their BMTs is what's called their silt fence up, you can call our engineering office and they can put a stop work order on it and say, look, obviously you're not controlling your material on site during construction, but even before they get to that point, they'll have to show our engineering department, we have 2 licensed engineers, one of which who has a special license in stormwater to be able to review that and prove that they're not going to be increasing runoff onto neighboring properties. The code's pretty clear on that.
Well, I know for a fact that I've already got 2 neighbors that are already currently getting water without any extra building, with the woods protecting it. And now if you have more houses, more extra water.
Yeah. Well, per our code, existing condition and proposed condition after it's done there cannot be a difference. They have to have something on site that holds the water back. If there's already a problem, then that's something that you could talk to the city about, talk to the engineering department and see if there's any public stormwater lines. If there's not, then that's already an issue between your neighbors and yourself already.
Okay,
That's an existing
but
condition.
what I'm saying is, after it happens
Mm-hmm.
and it increases, then who's going to be responsible for fixing it?
Then the property owner would. So if they submit paperwork that says it doesn't create problems, and then it does,
Okay,
then
so where's their water going to run to? It
downhill.
all runs downhill,
Well,
right?
there's, but this would be the same for a single-family house put on that lot right now. That they would have to do the same thing.
Right,
So it's no different,
With
really.
multiple, you're going to have more driveway,
right.
Right,
so less grass that catches it.
right. But I think what's also happening, and this may not be, but I know in my circumstance at where I live, we've never had water like we did when I first built there. It's been much more than it ever has. So it's gotten, I mean, just I don't know what it's called, but it just seems to have bigger rains more frequently than we used to.
Well, yeah, and that's a gimme, but I'm just,
Yeah, it would be
Start-
but it would be the same, they have a right to sell and develop the land to some extent, you know.
Oh, yeah,
put a
absolutely.
single, and really to us, if they're a single-family house, 50 by 60 would be common, you know, on a lot this size.
Right.
And if they put two even, it wouldn't be out of, you know, you could divide the lot in two and have two single-family
so
homes.
in other words, if this is going on, if it passes, then we would get a hold of the city and say, hey, we're getting way too much extra water, or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you realize there's a problem, absolutely. Especially if it's during construction where you see mud and runoff, and that's where it's a telltale sign that that's where it's coming from. That's always a good, you know, to catch it then and say, hey, look,
Right.
they call them BMPs, their fencing's down, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, our engineering department, anything that's under construction, we have people out every day making sure that those are in compliance.
okay,
So,
thank you.
And what was
Thanks.
your address again, ma'am? I'm
Ma-
sorry, I don't think we caught your address.
It's 1102 Horn Street.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Come on up.
I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
My name is Robert Phil. I live at 1108 Horn Street, directly behind that proposed property there. Again, I need to know about the stormwater, the runoff. Okay, you got the driveway coming back so people can pull into the back, right?
correct.
Okay. How is that water going to be,
Held back.
Diverted, held
Yeah.
back, yeah.
going to be like a curb and gutter back there or
Yeah,
something?
I couldn't tell you how. I can just tell you, per our code, they have to prove that it will be. It's not up to us to determine how that's done. It's up to them to bring in their building plans that they're not going to be hurting their neighbors. And so that's just like any other building permit. We wouldn't have to have a public meeting. They could, anytime someone comes and builds a house, they have to show that they have that stormwater handled. There's a number of things they can do. They can even do rain barrels at the ends of their gutters to collect
Yeah.
the water and then slowly let it out for big rains. They can do riprap at the end of the driveway. If there's issues, if they turn in the plans and our stormwater engineer who's certified says, yep, you're creating a significant runoff that you need to collect and store water on site, they would have to show that on their building plans.
Okay.
So, and that could be, because they got a lot of room back there, they could, I won't call it a pond, but a retention basin, if it's needed. I mean, it's a fairly big lot, and we're talking two fairly small buildings in comparison to the lot size.
Okay.
They probably got plenty of space to hold it on site.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Any additional comments by board or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, just one, right? All right, so passed. It will be at the next, is it at the next?
Yeah, it'll be October 28th, so it's a little bit of a delay here
At the
because
council
we.
meeting.
Yeah, it'll be at City Council on October 28th, not next Monday, but 2 weeks from now. So. So,
All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 4, case number 19-1002. The applicant is requesting annexation of property located at 925 Strookoff Lane, adjacent to and including landfill lease property.
Wait a second.
yeah. It got a recommendation of approval. It'll go to council for final approval yeah.
On the 28th. Mhm.
I'll reread item number 4, case number 19-1002. The applicant is requesting annexation of property located at 925 Strookoff Lane, adjacent to and including landfill lease property. It's including item number 5, also case number 19-1003. The applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval for property located at 925 Strookoff Lane, adjacent to and including landfill lease property. Sal.
Yes, all right. So this is an annexation and preliminary plat out at our landfill, as you just described. And Mark can actually correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is really just for planning purposes, for the future of, if needed, a trash transfer station. Not only for annexing the land to have that area in for the actual trash transfer station building, but also for the plat to identify of that land where it would go when needed. We just opened a new cell, so it's not necessarily in the next 5 to 6 years, but I think they're just getting this hashed out now, if that's what caused this to get brought up, right? Mark, I believe so?
Yeah, we entered into a contract with the Strookoffs a few years ago, which would give us the option to purchase this parcel. We're purchasing 6.72 acres, and they are donating another 3 acres. All of that will be annexed into. The plan is to annex that into the city for potential trash transfer station some point in the future, not in the near term, but some point in the future. So we need to annex all of that property in so we can acquire it. And then the next step, it's a couple of parcels, but we're proposing to plat it into one parcel so we have basically a buildable piece of property.
So those bold lines, this is already inside the city limits. You can see obviously where the landfill is. This hatched area, I drew that best I could of what I thought was being annexed. This is the actual exhibit, the plat survey that was drawn up, showing the 1.54 acres to be annexed, and it is actually where our weigh station is now. So that's for the annexation, and then the new plat. This is kind of how the lots lay out now, and you can see with the area that we're annexing in. This plat, actually, this ordinance won't get done with the final plat until the annexation is done, but you'll see this lot 1 of where the trash transfer station would be in the structure all at once. So, just clean it up for the future.
Questions, comments by board members? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Questions, comments?
This is your chance.
If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to item number 6 and 7, case number 19. Should we do each one individually?
Yeah, I think we need a motion for each.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
Need a motion for the plat.
So, John, you're doing case number 19-1002, the annexation,
Yes. Motion to accept.
and we have a second?
It was over there.
Okay. All those in favor of the annexation?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5, case number 19-103, the,
It'll be the plat.
yeah,
Plat.
plat approval.
Motion to approve. Or second, whichever. Dealer's choice.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 6 and 7, case number 19-1005, the applicant is requesting to rezone 806 through 814 Front Street from C1 General Commercial to R1B Single Family Residential. It also goes with item number 7, case number 19-1004, the applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval for 806 through 814 Front Street. Sal?
Yes, so this is a case, it's actually 2 applicants. You see on the application, there is the Wilsons and the Holtz. They own, I believe Jim Wilson owns the larger lot here. You can see where the proposed lots are in the future. And then the corner lot, and then the middle house is actually owned by a different property owner, the Holtz, who did sign off on the application. And this is to, the idea is to rezone the property bring it back to what was beforehand. So I'm sure if you are aware, this was rezoned, I believe, in 13. Pulled up the ordinance for the train museum. I went to C1 light commercial for that reason. The entire block did. So you can see here, the entire block went to that. That development obviously never came to fruition, but the zoning had already been passed. And so when it comes to zoning like that, we don't revert back. They are what they are. The applicant has now, at first, Mr. Wilson came in and had wished to redevelop this. There actually is a house that is vacant here. I had to tear that down and reconstruct a home here and then plat to build 3 lots here. And then speaking with him, I said, if you can get your neighbor involved, it would actually be one application. We can be contiguous, and then we can get whoever wants to get involved on the whole block. But that was who was interested at this time to bring back to the original zoning. We are recommending approval of the rezoning back to R1B, single-family residential. I will say in 2013, these properties weren't all actually zoned the same. There were some that were R2 overlay and some that were R1B. According to our code book, you can't just request the R1 over the overlay district. That's actually determined by boundary. When you read the definition, it tells you how far it is. And since the applicant had stated in their application they're just going to build a single-family home, they're not doing a two-family, we said just to make it easy, just go to R1B, single-family residential, which is what you see further west of here anyway. And so that's what we're recommending for the first case, is an approval for these 3 to go back to the original zoning, and the actual one home that is occupied will actually be brought into conformance because of this.
Questions or comments by board? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Yes, come on up.
Good evening.
Hello.
I'm Gary Warren. I live at 10 Abbey Ridge. I own a site that's not being developed or anything, but are you planning on rezoning the whole thing? I didn't hear what you were saying earlier.
So what is requested to just rezone these 3 lots that are highlighted?
So would I have to basically do the same thing? Would I have to file to have my portion of the land rezoned also?
I'm sorry, which one is your house?
No,
1, 2, 3 over.
This one here?
No, keep going.
3 over.
Keep going, right there.
Okay. Yeah, so right now, it's technically grandfathered in, so I guess it was all rezoned, and you gave that approval back originally.
Okay, so I will be rezoned also?
No, not per this request.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I can file for that if I like?
correct.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what's the zoning? I'm not familiar with your codes as far as what type of houses are going to be developed down there, or what houses would Mr. Wilson be putting on that land?
Maybe that's a question for the applicant.
Yeah, so, I mean, the applicant is here to answer, but single family, we just designate it has to be single family.
What about the square footage? What are we talking
I
there?
think that's what he needs to come up and answer for.
well, but that we don't control it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no minimum.
We
maximum.
can control minimum lot size, we can't control minimum house size.
Sure.
I mean, our building code obviously has to have a minimum square footage for, livable space.
Okay.
But as for the zoning code, we can't say it has to be 1,200, 800 square feet, it just
Sure.
it has to fit into the lot size and meet the setbacks. But as you'll see in the next one, we get to the next case, the lots proposed match identical to what is there today.
Okay.
So they're not going to, he's not proposing a higher density residential district. It actually, I'm assuming those 3 lots, 1, 2, 3, were actually what was there originally when this block was
That was the
created,
pottery
and it
shed.
probably was consolidated at one time,
Okay.
so.
And just as a clarification, 6,000 is the smallest lot you can build a house on.
Correct.
So those are all just a little over that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Any other questions or comments?
Maybe Mr. Wilson could come forward and just speak to the plan, since there was a question raised.
Since you're here,
Jim Wilson, 4 Lancaster Court.
square footage, I guess, is the question.
Can you talk
Square
about
footage?
what are your plans for the property?
It's going to be 3 houses on lot 1, 2, and 3, and they're going to face Main Street. And I thought that would be the best bet. I'd rather have them going, someone backing out on Front Street. It's pretty busy down there. And so I thought I'd tear down the old house on the corner, the Bates's property, and I will face it, Front Street, but I will have a rear entry garage on that one. So they back out on Main Street also.
Okay.
So I think it'd be an asset to the community down there.
Do you have any idea of the size approximately of the
The
square
houses are
footage?
about 1,200 square feet. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-car garage.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? I think it'd be nice to see it developed.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
There's a demand.
I'm sorry?
There's a demand for that. Not everybody wants,
Mm-hmm.
you know, 4 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms.
Sure, sure. It's affordable housing.
Yeah.
And if you build something really nice down there, I think it would be a problem because you have the tanks across the street. So I think that would just fit the neighborhood good.
That's good.
Thanks.
Thank
You
you.
bet. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody in the audience?
So I will just say, I didn't bring it up, but we are recommending approval of the plat as well. There's no infrastructure improvements required. There's water and sewer actually on both front and main, and there's no utility easements required because of the infrastructure that's already in place. And again, the proposed density matches what was there originally. So we think it's a good readaptation of the property, so.
There's no further discussion. Entertain a motion on the item number 6, case number 19105 for the zoning.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Now, case number 19104 on the preliminary plat approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. It'd be at council, same date, October.
Yeah, October 28th, 2 weeks. So.
Moving on to item number 8, case number 19106, the applicant is requesting approval of a special use permit for a vacation rental dwelling located at 8 West 10th Street. Sal?
Yes, so, hold on. This is another request for vacation rental by owner, a vacational dwelling unit. I think this applicant has done something similar with this in the past where they own an apartment building with multiple units and they would like to get this approved in order to have flexibility on long-range and short-term rentals. So in this case, this is at 8 West 10th Street. There are 12 units there. We did verify that this morning because I thought there was more units there than was on the application, but we have inspected 12 units there, and so because of this, they actually do have a parking lot here, which actually gets them ahead of most of our problems or concerns, I should say, with these short-term rentals if it causes a lot of on-street parking. This area obviously does have ample off-street parking for the units already. So we don't think it's really a big change in use for the area. It just offers the owner a little bit of flexibility in rentals. One thing they will have to do is even if they are not, if they currently have long-term rentals in them, because the building itself is being requested for the short-term rental, they will have to get the re-inspection done and set up. I mean, it can be one business license, one bed tax, just like any for one building, but they'll have to show, since we already have 8 building files on it for 8 inspections, those files, each unit will have to have a new commercial inspection to make sure they're passing those requirements.
And those buildings are connected, correct?
Correct.
So we can do a special use permit for connected buildings without a lot line?
It's one parcel, so it's for the whole parcel.
It's for the whole
Runs,
parcel?
yeah,
So,
runs with the subject property. That was my concern, is are we picking certain units, or are we picking the whole property? And because I thought maybe there was more than 12 units, and they were only asking for it on 12, but we only have 12 units at this address registered, and so that would be, the request runs with the property in its entirety.
but the next building is a different address.
That's to the rear.
No, it's 8, 10, and 12 is a back building. So the second that one there, the gray roofed one, is number 10.
Maybe Lisa can
That
answer
is-
that. Where are the 12, here, I'll let her answer where the 12 units are.
If you would, come on up if you would.
Where the 12 units are.
You can pull that down a little bit.
Oh, thanks. I'm Lisa Greify. I own those buildings. So there's 3 buildings. They're not connected. There's 8, 10, and 12.
They're not connected, you said? Okay.
No.
And so you're only applying for 10, or are you, I mean, that's what we're trying to clarify.
So I have Ameren folks there now staying for like 3 months, but I want the ability, once we've decorated and spent the money, to put them on Airbnb as well.
Okay. So my question though is, are
It's
you
just the
propose,
one.
so just that one, the other ones are not changing then? So 8 and 12?
They're not, but I've been through this before, so what's the,
Well, so there's
Yes.
12 units in this far right building?
yes.
Okay. Well, Mark, can we do it by address, or does it have to be by parcel? It can be by address? Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
So the unit 10 that you're proposing, how many units are in that one? Or building 10, number 10, how many units?
I think 8,
Okay, so 8.
but I'm in building 8.
Yeah, she's doing building.
She's only proposing 8. building
Oh, okay,
8.
I'm sorry. I thought the request
There's
was for
8.
10.
yeah.
No,
I'm
it's-
sorry.
The address is 8.
I know, it's confusing. So
Okay,
it's 8,
okay.
10, and 12
Gotcha.
west,
So 8,
Yeah.
building number 8 has
12 units.
12 units. Okay.
And there's only one that's an Airbnb now, and it's not, right now, we just want the ability, if somebody leaves, we want to be able to rent it on Airbnb as well, just so.
So
it
just
doesn't
making
sit-
the entire building ability to do that.
I guess that's what happens if it does pass.
We can do it by
right?
address. So, right now,
I
this is
don't really
for...
plan on doing any more in that building. We're trying to move them all downtown to another building that we have, so.
So the address will read it for the 12 units at 8 West 10th Street.
There's
Not to
only
be
one address.
confused with 10.
Okay.
And this will be the
Gotcha.
same for the next.
Okay.
Or there's 6 units.
Okay, I
One-
think we got it.
One address, one unit in
Gotcha.
the 8 West 10th, and there's 12 apartments.
Gotcha.
But we're only requesting one of the units be an Airbnb.
So not the entire building?
That's correct.
Okay,
Oh,
so
actually,
just
the way I
one.
interpret the application was that...
One?
Well, I
12
would
units, but-
prefer to have that option, but right now, we only have one.
Okay, so you want one unit at 8 West 10th Street, a building of 12 units.
I would, just so they have the flexibility for the future, that all 12 units at 8 West 10th would be approved for short-term lodging.
Okay, yeah, that's what we would prefer.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
don't have to come back in the event, but right now, we were just.
Yeah, because on here, I don't even have a unit letter to choose which one would
Oh,
be,
it's
so...
it's B.
Well, we'll just do it as all 10.
To
So.
clarify, I mean, just so there's no confusion, I mean, there is nothing, once a building is approved for short-term rental, there's nothing that would prohibit the owner from entering a lease and saying, we want to lease this out as rental property. Is
For
there?
long-term?
Yeah.
No.
So it wouldn't, I mean, it really has no effect.
It just
can
allows
do
them...
anything
It just
over-
allows them to use it in that special use manner.
Yes.
We can do anything over 30 days, but when you get under
Right.
30 days, it's considered transient.
Right. Oh, I know that part, but what I'm saying is just so that it's not a detriment to
Right, it doesn't
you in
preclude
the
you.
event, because you're saying you really only want to use one of your units.
Yes.
If the whole building is approved for it, it doesn't lock you into just doing that. It doesn't prohibit you from
correct.
doing your long-term leases.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to make sure that is clear,
Okay.
that there's no confusion there.
All right.
Any other questions or comments?
And there is enough off-street parking there
Yeah.
There's plenty.
for that?
Yeah, they have
That unit?
24, which is 2 per unit, so, in the front there. And we wouldn't require any additional, to be honest.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
I don't know that our codes required it back when those were built.
There's plenty off-street, and then, across the street, some people sometimes park there. There's
'Cause I went
nothing
in there
across the
Sunday
street.
morning and it was full.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking.
It's also a one-bedroom. I don't know if that makes any difference, but it's a one-bedroom.
Do you get people parking there like from events at the nearby
Yeah,
ball field?
all the
So
time.
that's what I wonder if maybe could there be overflow from an event that?
And, yeah, that happens all the time. So,
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
thanks.
Thank
And
you.
we're the next one on the agenda
Yeah.
as well, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's on Stafford. Do you want me to just stay here, or?
Well, we got to get a motion and discussion first on this one.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? We don't want to make you walk all the way back there and all the way back up. If there's
It's
no
okay,
other
I'll do it.
comments or discussion, is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Is he coming up?
Item number 9, case number 19107, the applicant is requesting approval of a special use permit for a vacation rental dwelling located at 1317
Yep.
Stafford Street.
Same thing, we'll recommend approval. This one does have 4 units with 8 parking in the rear, 8 parking spaces in the rear. And so we would require the same thing for the occupancy inspection when they get the business license for it, so.
Any questions or comments by board members? We're clear on the address here, 1317.
1317 Stafford.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on it? There's no further discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember when those were built?
Any other items before the board?
Nope.
Nothing, Sal?
Nothing. Hey, that's pretty quick for 7 items.
Yeah, Cardinals are playing.
That's right.
Got to get rolling here.
Entertain one last motion.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Too bad.
All right, I think we're leaving. But all in all, I thought it was
I will. You take care and keep
right.
them. You haven't had any posts.